It is now my pleasure to introduce today's speaker. Captain Ryan McGuire is a 2008 USAFA grad and a C-17A Globemaster III instructor pilot in the 535th Airlift Squadron, Joint Base Pearl Harbor, Hickam, Hawaii. After losing his right leg below the knee in a boating accident while attending pilot training at Laughlin Air Force Base, Captain McGuire accomplished rehabilitation at the Center for the Intrepid in San Antonio, Texas. He contested an unfit for duty classification and was reinstated in the Air Force, eventually earning his flying rating and becoming the first amputee to graduate from pilot training. Captain McGuire has flown over 1,800 hours, including 4 deployments and multiple combat missions, and was the recipient of the 2012 DoD Outstanding Service Member with a Disability Award. Captain McGuire is currently stationed at Hickam Air Force Base, Honolulu, Hawaii, and serves as a mentor to fellow amputees who wish to return to service. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to present to you Captain Ryan McGuire.
Good morning, everybody. Like you said, I'm Captain Ryan McGuire, and I'm a 2008 grad. I'm really excited to be here today, so thanks for having me. Go to the next slide. So I'm starting to get a cold, so I'm sorry about that, but we'll get through it. So this is the overview I want to talk about because it's an Air Force slideshow. Next slide. Introduction. So like I said, I'm at Pearl Harbor Hickam. I just got there a couple months ago, and I'm really excited. It's obviously a really hard ship tour, and it's really difficult for me to be there. But I came here to be with you guys because I'm tired of the 80 degrees. So my story, like I said, I've always wanted to be a pilot since I was little. That's me at an air show at Ellington Field. I love airplanes. I love looking overhead. I didn't have really any military exposure, but I've always wanted to be in this type of flying world. So I studied hard in high school, and I went to the Air Force Academy, and I graduated in 2008. And I got a pilot slot, like many of you guys have. I got a pilot slot and went to Laughlin Air Force Base in Del Rio, Texas. I entered class 1003 in pilot training. And then I was in phase 3. You got the T6, the T1, and the third phase is that T1. And I was at a boat. We decided to go boating in Labor Day weekend 2009. So my friends and I decided to take a nice relaxing weekend in sunny Del Rio. And we went on a boat and we were tubing. And we had finished tubing for the day. And we were dragging the tube in the back of the boat. So the rope was hooked up to the tube and the tube was in the back of the boat. We started driving back to the marina, going like, just the cruising pace back to the marina, getting back for the end of the day. And some wind caught the tube, and the tube flew out of the boat. And it took the rope with the tube and wrapped around my leg, and then took me out of the boat. And I flew over my friend's head out in the water. On the way out, I slammed into the side of the boat with my pelvis, and it popped open. And then I flew into the water and got dragged out to the tube. And as the rope unraveled around my leg, it did a lot of damage. This was after surgery. They ended up having to amputate part of the leg. Next slide. So what happened was we got to the hospital. It took us about 6 hours to get to any good medical center. So my friends and I, we're getting back in the boat, and I just couldn't, nothing was visually really wrong. There was like a little burn on my leg, but I could feel like my pelvis had been fractured and my hip had been dislocated, and I knew that something, I was like, I can't get back in the boat. I was able to get back in that ledge, but I couldn't get all the way back in. So I started telling my friends, like, I can't, something's wrong, and they're like, we need to get back in the boat, we need to get you to help. And I said, I just can't do it. Like, it was so painful. Like, the shock kind of wore off, and then I started like full-on pain. So about 20 minutes later, I was finally able to just lay down in the back of the ramp, but I still couldn't get back in. So we had the flag down. There's no cell phone service. Like I said, it took about 2 hours to get anybody to be able to give us help. So by then, we had some park rangers come out, and they were able to very, very painfully put me on a stretcher, and I got back in their boat, and we drove to an ambulance. Ambulance got us to the hospital, and then they pulled my leg really hard and popped the hip back in, and I was not happy about that. They give you like morphine in the TV shows, and they're fine. Like it was waiting for it to kick in, it just was not. So I was in a lot of pain. And then they life-flighted me to San Antonio Military Medical Center, SAMC, and I was taken into the trauma unit there. I woke up and I was bandaged. My pelvis had been repaired in surgery, and my leg was all covered up. So my family got called there because I live in Houston, so they were just driving over there. But basically the assessment was that this was going to be fine. Like you jacked up your leg, it's going to be, it's really the tissue and stuff's going to have to heal, but we're confident that you can heal. The main focus is on my pelvis, because that would take about 6 weeks of recovery, just having that cinched in and those bones healing. So I was like, okay, this is annoying. Like, the first question was like, when can I get back into, like, am I gonna have to get washed back into the pilot training class? Like, is this gonna take longer? It was already a miserable experience of pilot training. I was like, I don't want it to take longer. And I was like, I'm not gonna be with my friends anymore. And I was really distraught just about that immediately. So then a couple days later, like, we started, the pelvis was under control, and they started taking a pulse of my foot, and it was taking about 2 whole minutes to get any pulse on the foot. And that was kind of worrying me. I was like, God, this is not good. And the tip of my middle toe started turning purple, and it started spreading to the other toes, and it started spreading past the foot. And then I remember one day the nurse came in, and I was like, just put a towel over my foot. I don't even want to look at it anymore. Because it was like the impending, people stopped talking to me about, the nurses and stuff were very like, they weren't upfront with me about what was going on, and I was really nervous, and I was like, they know something's wrong. And finally, I was in the burn unit because it was like a rope burn on the foot, and they came in there like, we're gonna have to amputate part of your foot. And I was like, I can't believe this is happening. It was the lowest of the low for me, and I was so distraught. And my family was like literally driving every single weekend to come see me, and my mom was there full time, and I was just really distraught. My friends were coming from pilot training, a 2.5-hour drive to San Antonio to come see me every day. So I had that good support system, but I was really just like, the impending doom of like what was going to happen was just terrible. When they finally told me they were going to amputate half my foot, they were going to take my leg, but I was like, no, like we can. The purple's just on my toes. Like, come on, guys, we can't just do that. And they tried to explain to me how painful it would be to like recover from that. I was like, no, we're just doing the foot. So I went in, and that was the other picture. Was this when they cut off the foot? And so they tried a couple surgeries, and then I remember they went to the doctor. And they came back, and they're like, there's another purple spot on the edge of that now, because they had done a skin graft from my thigh, and then that started turning purple. And I was like, I can't believe this is happening. They were talking about a leg amputation again. So then I went into surgery one last time to do another skin graft on my other hip, and they were gonna try that to repair the tissue. And I was going to hyperbaric chambers to stimulate blood flow, and they were putting leeches on it. It was super gross. And it's like the 1920s. And so they're doing all this stuff, and they were trying to save it. And then I remember going into surgery for the last skin graft, and I remember waking up there with my mom, and she said, I was like, how'd it go? And she started crying. And I was like, I lost everything. I just lost it. So I went in surgery a couple days later, and they took off. I went in with 2 legs, and they came out with 1. And it was just it's so painful. And in the beginning, I had hope, and then it just a growing concern, and then it just dissipated, and I lost. I went into surgery, came out with a leg, and then, next slide. I remember after that last surgery, I went out in the wheelchair. It was just, it's very taxing to be in the hospital, and I went out in that wheelchair, and I was with my friend and my mom, and I remember our plane flew overhead just to San Antonio Airport, and I just started crying again. I was like, God, like that's what I want to do, and I was so close, and I had it, like worked for 23 years of my life, and I was gonna do it, and then it got taken away from me. So that was just really, really difficult. Next slide. So the best part of the hospital that was getting out of the hospital, you're being surrounded by patients. I'm surrounded by burn patients and people that have it worse than me, and people like that are going through the same thing. But it was just really hard. There was no uplifting thing about it. So the best part was when I finally got into rehab. And I got the Center for the Intrepid Rehabilitation Center in San Antonio right next to the hospital. Met my therapist, and I finally got to see, I was like, yeah, this is it. Like, I see people with prosthetics down the line already running, people doing, lifting weights, people getting better, people on the up and up, people down the road. And the best part was I was in the hospital, and a guy was wearing pants, and he was in the elevator with me, and he said, when was your surgery? Because I was in a wheelchair, and I said, it was last week, and he said, oh, mine was 2 years ago. He just walked off. And that was the coolest thing, was like, I didn't even know he had a prosthetic leg, and now it was like, this is gonna be me, like I can do this. So that was really cool to see the levels of people down the road from me and see like, I can do this, like I'm gonna get back into pilot training. And then I just started annoying everybody. I was like, this is how we're gonna do it, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. My therapist came in the room, and she's like, what do you wanna do, like what are your goals? And I was like, well, I ran a marathon when I was a cadet at the academy, so I'd like to run one now. And she's like, well, unfortunately I have to do everything you do, so that's gonna be really painful, but. I was like, I'm sorry, next slide. So I had hit rock bottom at the hospital, but then I saw that catalyst was that elevator story that I just told you. It brought me out of the depths of just wallow in self-pity and, it's just this terrible despair. And then I saw like all these other people, and they were inspiring me, and I was like, I can do this. Like, I'm gonna be running soon. Like, how long till I can do that? When can I get in the pool? When can I get on the track? When can I do all this stuff? And it was really exciting at the CFI, just being surrounded by that positive environment and my therapist and everything. And so I was, first you start off on crutches, and I took my, it was exhausting to rebuild all that muscle mass. I lost about 40 pounds in the hospital, so just rebuilding that strength, the upper body strength to carry yourself. And I'd walk from bed to the wheelchair with the crutches, and then eventually I'd walk all the way to rehab, and then I'd walk all the way back, and then we'd work up to a full day of it. And then eventually I took my first steps in my prosthesis, and that was really cool. And right when I had just gotten it, my therapist told me about Baton Death March memorial walk, which doesn't sound very much fun. It's obviously memorializing the World War II real one. And I was like, she's like, well, it's a 26.2 mile marathon, and I think we can walk it. And I was like, I'm busy that day. And and but she's like, but they're flying, somebody donated their private jet, and we can talk you and maybe get in the cockpit for a second. I was like, I'll go. And then it was a terrible idea. But I did that, and then I actually got a call from Miss Cami Stock, who's in the room, and she called and said, I really think you should, we heard about your story. I think we have these Warrior Games coming up, and I think they'd be really good for you. And I didn't even have my leg at that point. I was like, no, I can't walk right now. It's in May. It's 5 months from now. I can't do that. I'm not gonna be ready. So, and I was embarrassed. I was like, wouldn't it be embarrassing if I hobbled along on my new running leg that I might get by then, and people would, I'd be the last place. That'd be terrible. So she persisted, and ended up doing the Warrior Games, which was one of the best experiences of my life. It was a joint venture between the Department of Defense and the United States Olympic Committee. And it was really cool. They had it actually out here at the Olympic Training Center and the Air Force Academy. And that was the first year they did it in 2010, I believe. Excuse me. And it was just really cool. I worked, took my first steps in, got my amputation in October, took my first steps in December. And then I ended up getting a running leg by March, and I was able to run. It was so easy to just run a mile, because I had been hobbling along on this difficult prosthesis, and then all of a sudden I get a running leg, and I just tear off and do a mile, and it was 12 minutes or something, and that was really cool for the first time ever. I remember calling everybody I ran a mile today, and that was really exciting. So being able to do that was cool, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I can actually I was getting in the pool, swimming a lot. I was like, maybe I can do this Warrior Games thing. And the team and the coaches and stuff, we worked with them, and it was really exciting to be able to work with these amazing athletes, people injured in war stuff, and then also people with this cancer, sicknesses, and people like me that were just injured in recreational activities. And being able to be with those type of people and inspire each other was an awesome group of people to be able to work with each other, push each other. You're in the pool and you see that person next to you edge on you, swimming a little bit faster, and that was just W amputees from the Marines. It was all the different service teams, W amputee Marines. People with missing 3 limbs, people in the pool swimming without legs and one arm, and it was just so cool. It was the coolest thing in the world to be able to have the last place person, everyone standing ovation, clapping, and you're like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen, is that last place Marine finishing with 1 arm. That was the coolest thing I've ever seen. It was so inspiring, and so that really picked me up and was pushing me towards. When I got back from that, I told my therapist, I was like, let's start getting ready for pilot training. I can do this now. Next slide. So now we started focusing on the flying stuff. I was like, I got this rehab thing. I can go back to pilot training in Del Rio. I can go back to the base and do this on my own. So I want to start fighting the unfit for duty classification. So they put me up just to the normal paperwork. They wrote down medically he can walk, and I had a letter from my therapist and doctor, and this got sent up to Air Force Personnel Center, the medical. And it came back and they said unfit for duty. So not only was I can't be a pilot, they were saying that I can't be in the Air Force. And so that was devastating because, I want to be a pilot and it was really exciting, but I'm here to serve in the military, and that's what I really wanted to do. And that was being a part of something bigger is what I learned here at the academy. So that was really neat to be able to do that. And I was like, well, I have to at least be in the Air Force, come on. But they were looking at it as he's a pilot, he doesn't have a leg, you can't fly without a leg. So now I got back and we had a team of people at Laughlin, and we said, we're going to show them. So I put a video together, and we showed me swimming, running, the stuff from the Warrior Games, the article they had done on me for that. We put it together, me doing the Air Force PT test and being able to pass without any type of profile. We put a video of me, had training, I was up to 18 miles at that point from my marathon. We put a video of me getting in and out of the cockpit, flying in a simulator. We actually got a one-time flight with my commander, and I flew the aircraft. And we're showing people I can do the braking and the rudders and everything that you would ever think would be wrong with flying the T1 again. So we brought all that to the medical board, and it's me sitting with my lawyer. They have a lawyer there, they appoint to you, and my commander and my therapist and doctor, and they just sat there, and you go in front of 3 colonels, and they just decide your life for you. So it was incredibly nerve-wracking. I was terrified, and I was sitting there, and then they got back to me, and you plead your case, and then you go back and you come back, and they said, okay, we're going to allow you to continue to be in the United States Air Force. And that was really cool. I went outside and told my parents, and they just started screaming. And it's like, this is still like a place of business, and there's like other people waiting to go in, and she's screaming. I was like, ugh. But so then we just submitted. My flight doctor submitted the fact that I had been kept went up to the levels of the Air Force, and then they submitted, and they got me a waiver to fly. So now I have a waiver to fly the T1 back in pilot training. So I was like excited. I was so excited. And we told my commander that when the flight doc told me, we told my commander, he said, that's awesome. You're back in on Monday. And that was Friday. So it was like, oh crap, I have to study again. Like, I was like, what have you been doing for a year and a half? It's like, next slide. So that was exciting. And then I got, at the end of pilot training, I got C-17s in McCord, Joint Base Lewis McCord, and that was the best. Like, I love flying the T1, and just be able to go to this next plane was awesome. So what is professionalism? The theme of NCLS and stuff. Professionalism for me was the art of leading oneself, and just me having that confidence in myself and showing, like, I know I can do this. Let me show these people with this amazing support team. And that was what I was able to do. Was that it made the decision easy for these guys to be like, yeah, this Ryan showed us he can do this. We have confidence in this officer. We put a huge investment in him already, but are we going to allow him to continue to do this with one leg? And I just showed, because nobody had ever graduated from pilot training without a leg. So they're like, why would we, this is an easy cut and dry thing. But to them, I wanted to show that I was worth the investment. And that's what, when you have the values, you show them, you have the integrity, the service, and the excellence, you show them that you're committed to it, then they reward you with like, okay, our mission is to fly, fight, and win, but we're taking care of our people. So that was really cool for me to see how that worked out. Next slide. And so that's what I'm saying. The drive got me through my rehabilitation, showed them that I was a professional airman, and then that culture and the relationships you build of my support network was able to bring me back in and show them, and it was an easy decision for them in the end. So how I overcame, next slide. The big thing that for me was the power of sport. The team I had cheering me on and my family and support network was awesome. But when I got in that power of sport, I realized how incredible it was to be motivated by, like, you get in the pool and this is like all of a sudden, like, who cares if you don't have a leg? Like, I was swimming, it's an arm thing. And I was like, oh, cool, like, this is awesome. I feel like I don't have a disability. And when you're running and that running leg, you look up sometime, you're just like running, you look down, and you're like, oh, I don't have a leg. Like, it's crazy. The technology and stuff is there. And the power sport really motivated me and pushed me to show what I was capable of. And I remember Cammy's over there, and I finished at the War Games, and I ran like a stupid 7-minute mile or something, and it was ridiculous. And I collapsed in her, she thought I was getting her hug, but I was like collapsing onto her and like vomited after, like it was terrible. But I was like, I can't believe I just did that. And I was actually in better shape then than before my accident. And it was really cool to show the power of sport and how that helps people, and seeing other people motivated and other wounded people that are prior to your level of ability, and then afterwards too. So I'm still motivated because of those people, and maybe I can inspire them as I finish my lap in the pool or whatever. So that was really cool to just show how incredible that was and motivated me. We'll play a quick video. This is a really cool, you can go and play it while I'm talking. Really cool video that the Paralympics put together last year in Sochi, or a couple years ago in Sochi. And I think it's really cool showing the incredible caliber of these athletes. It puts your problems in perspective.
I am not a morning person.
I hate going to
Odbierz. Jadę, już jestem w drogę.
Oh, excuse me. It's so cold.
Nienawidzę deszczu.
I'll never get used to this.
The wind. Headwind is the worst.
W ocznym patrzeniu lubię go.
Long talk.
Rumba,
So I really like that video because like that blind skier was I think the coolest thing in the world. That she skied with a guy just telling her where to turn. Like those people are unbelievable, and that's kind of like they always have those. Nobody knows that the Paralympic Games are like just as big, and they're just right after the games. And it's really cool to see a couple of the athletes I worked with at the Center for the Intrepid actually went on and like won gold medals at the Sochi Games, and that's just really cool. Those people are unbelievable, and it really puts your problems in perspective, like I said. So some of these stories I learned along the way. I remember crutching one day, and I was all happy about my rehab, and I was about to get my leg in like a week, the prosthetic fitting, and I was going along, and then it was raining outside, and I was trying to get in, and I slipped and fell directly. And you know, when you fall with one leg, it all goes onto the stump. So all my body weight crushed onto that, and I was so mad, and I was like crying because I was in so much pain. And these like just wounded warriors came and scooped me up and brought me inside, and they're like, I remember my first time I fell like that was, you know, and they just joke with me, and I was like, I'm with these amazing people that are making me feel better about that. And plus, like, there was a trip going to Dave & Buster's in the afternoon, and I wanted to go. But I was like, oh, I'm not going to have my leg in time now, and it delayed me a little bit. But it's just like, they're like, oh, we were just there a couple months ago, like, that's fine, no big deal. And so that was really cool. This is my prosthetic leg that I got. I have a really amazing prosthetist that I work with at the Center for the Intrepid, and then another guy that moved out to Seattle where I was based last, and I still use him. They can melt T-shirts on your prosthetics. So the socket there is the Fighting Fourth, the 4th Airlift Squadron McCord that I flew with. So I got that made, and I thought it was really cool. That's my flying leg. And then this is really cool, the sprinting leg, the cheetah leg that you've probably seen before. And it's like a back-mounted, just like a C-arc, and it's really springy, and it really helps you just assist in like the loss that you have without the ankle and stuff. And so this is technology here, and like this is like an Olympic athlete sprinter with that mounted, and just you can see how much power you have. It doesn't give you the full like balance that you get. It doesn't have the full potential of like a real leg, but it gets about like 97% of the return of it. So it's pretty cool. These are my collection of. I think I'm up to and exceeding an octopus now, so that's pretty sweet. But they call this a Barbie leg because they made it, and they even put like dimples in it and like creases in the skin, and they got a little machine out and like saw my skin color, and it was really cool. And they molded the foot of it, and they a lot of the Army guys who have tattoos, they have an artist paint it for you. So they really I get taken care of by these guys. It's awesome. That's a waterproof leg, a running leg. That was my flying leg at the time back when we used to wear black boots. This is a workout one, and that's my other. That's like a sprinting one, running. That's a lower profile, just normal running leg. And so, like I said, my therapist, we were just dying, and we crossed that marathon. That's the time we started a little late, but I think it was 4 hours and 59 minutes. The marathon. And I was just like, you know, an incredible amount of pain. It was terrible, but it was just really cool that that's the guy that was at the hospital every day. He was my liaison officer there, and he was able to. I had a family liaison officer that was amazing, and she took care of my family. But then he was like taking care of like the pilot training piece of it, and so he was able to cross that finish line with me and my therapist, and that was a really good moment for me to be able to finish that. And that was so that was the Air Force Marathon in September, so it was 11 months after losing my leg I was able to do that, so it's pretty cool. So this is a really cool, my parents surprised me and my family showed up for my first steps, and so my dad joked, he's like, I was here for both times when you took your first steps, so it was pretty neat to be able to have my family be there for that first walking. And they let you walk a couple times, and then they kind of take it away from you because you don't want it to get too sore, so it was kind of a weird moment, but it was really cool for me to be able to take those first steps and start learning how to do that. This is all the friends from pilot training and some family members, and that's all the people. They were there every single weekend visiting me, and I know it was a 2.5-hour drive, and I just they were just always there. It came like, oh, they're here again. Like, it's so much fun. They got me through the really tough times, and I was really depressed after a couple of the surgeries, and they were just there without care in the world. Keeping in mind they're in a 14-month pilot training program, one of the hardest things you can put yourself through in the Air Force, and they were just there like it was no big deal. This is my ops group commander, and I kind of stole my leg. My therapist was like, you can't wear this for more than like 2 hours, and she let me go home to Del Rio for my pilot training classes graduation when they got their assignment, or not the assignment night when they got their assignments. It's a pretty big deal after the T1 and the T38. And he brought me up there and he said, this is when I'm going through my med board stuff. He brought me up there and he said, this is Ryan, you may know, he was in a boating accident here. He brought me up and said, he's going to be back with us. And that was the coolest thing. My commanders they were unwavering, unflinching support for me. They just knew I was going to be a pilot. It was just a matter of this might take a little bit. And that for me, I was so nervous and thinking about the worst case scenarios, but they were always behind me. And they always had my back. and they just knew they were going to do it, and they're like, we'll just have to show them. Let's do this video. Like, let's just pull out all the stops and show this. And that unwavering support made me, my blind confidence, and I was like, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do this and that. And, he sat there with me at the medical board and said, he's about to run a marathon, he's up to 20 miles. Like, can any of you gentlemen do that? And that was just cool. I can't say that to another colonel, but he could. And that was cool. I was like, they support me and they were behind me, and that's really important for when you guys end up leading, and some people are in here leading, to have the back of your people. And it was I was just a lieutenant at pilot training. He didn't know my name before. I wasn't special. And I was just an officer in the Air Force, and that was what I was capable of doing. And anybody else if you were faced with that situation, you would have done the same thing. But I was put to the test, and it was cool that they're like, okay, he's done this, he's not special, but let's give him the amount of attention we give to anybody else if this happened to them. And that was, they paid for my family to come TDY to visit me every week. They were doing all these incredible things that I didn't even know about, and it was all behind the scenes. And it was just so cool that they take care of the people, and that was one of the most important things. That's why I do speaking things like this, because I love to give back to the Air Force and say, like, this is what they do for you. It's an amazing, people get cynical and stuff, but they really take care of you, and they really care about it, and it's the people that are doing that for other people. And this is the worst day of my life, was the day they cut off my leg. Worst day so far, and it's going to keep that way. And then the best day of my life was getting that C-17 in McCord, because they kind of, it's crazy, they like surprise you with it. They just line you up and they put a slide up on the thing and they say C-17's in McCord. And that was, this is the graduation. It was so cool. I worked so hard, and my commander said, Ryan, I want you to fly, I always want to fly C-17s, but he said, I want you to fly C-17s because you can look in the eye of that medevac patient and say, like, we got your back, we're going to take care of you, and look what I'm doing now. And so I've done medevacs with people that are, in comas and people that have been blown up in Afghanistan, and getting to seeing all the moving parts and how we spent all this money. It doesn't matter, fly as fast as you want, fly as fast as you can. And they give you a special call sign so all the people on the way from Afghanistan to Germany know you're an evac. And just to see how they all care, and you're moving all these parts and all these resources for one guy. And that's just really cool. So this is my squadron. My commander always said hashtag two-legged problems, because if I was his exec for a while, and he'd joke about I'd go in there and be like, sir, I need, do you mind if we don't have any execs for an hour? I got to go to an appointment for my leg. And he's like, Ryan, if I had a nickel for every time my exec came and asked for me to go to his leg appointment, But this is 2014. We at the New Year we ran he was like trying to get us to run 14 miles. I was like, how about 14 kilometers? So we did that together. And that's cool. Like the deployment stuff. That's our plane in Oman. Next slide. And this is before ISIS. They had already shut down Iraq by the time I started flying. But we would go there and they had contractors there still, and we'd go to Balad and bring them stuff. And so that's with our crew and my commander, and just carrying some Humvees. And then this is our entire squadron deploying. And that was before. We went to Iraq, and then a month later, ISIS started happening. Now we're flying there a lot, but it was really cool to be able to be a part of that beginning stuff. So now I'm living the dream. You can click on that video. This is my amazing plane flying at Hickam Air Force Base. Like I said, a hardship tour, and it's just an unbelievable plane. In the next slide. I love it. I'm just gonna plug it now, like the next 20 minutes. This is our amazing cockpit, and this is just at night. We have a glass cockpit, and it's one of the most advanced planes in the Air Force inventory, which actually isn't saying that much because everything's pretty old. But we have the new stuff. And it's cool, and that's our HUD. That's at 35,000 feet. That's what we look through to fly. It's pretty neat. We have a stick instead of a yoke, so it's kind of like we're pretending to be fighter pilots. This is us. This is one of the scariest things I think we do is we're fueling. That's a 135 looking down at our plane, and he's guiding it to the box, and we're just sitting there you're staring at the airplane, moving like 1,000, like a hummingbird in your hands, just trying to stay there. It's pretty cool. So this is my friend Kara and us were going out, or Bryn and us were going out, and we bought a leg from a Halloween store, and he's like, you can just take it. He gave it to us for free. Next slide. That's my sisters thinking they're funny. You can see I'm the Ryan. And that's just United Airlines or Continental at that time. And that's me in the floor seat of the Lakers game. I took my leg off and just used it as like a coaster. Chuck Norris came and visited the Surf Intrepid, and I asked him if he could, can I get a picture of you roundhouse kicking me? And he goes, no, and he just started choking me. And he's like, get a picture of this. And I was terrified. So lessons learned, nothing comes easy. I didn't just you know, like I said, I'm just a normal guy, but I did work extremely hard, but the payoff was amazing. I got to meet amazing people. I've been a part of amazing things and gotten to see a lot of amazing people. So that was what I worked extremely hard for it, though. And it was a choice. They asked me, one of the first weeks I was at the Center for the Intrepid, they asked, we can medically retire you. And I immediately just said no, like that's not an option. I made the choice to get out of that bed every day and keep fighting, and I made that choice to stay in the Air Force because that's what I wanted to do, and that's what I worked my entire life. And I don't know what I would do if I wasn't able to be in the world's greatest Air Force. Adversity, everyone's gonna be faced with adversity, and in that lowest moment, when I saw that plane flying overhead and knew that it wasn't gonna be me, at that time I thought I knew. It's never too much, and I was faced with adversity, and I was like, this is just never ending. It kept getting worse. The tissue started dying, we cut off half the leg, the hyperbaric chamber was painful, then the full leg cut off, and it was just like, I can't do this anymore, this is too much. But just turn to your other military friends, your civilian friends, everybody, there's a support system built into everything we have here, and that's an amazing thing to be a part of. So my family and friends and everybody just kept me going, and they have no idea. At the time, I was so in my own zone. It was just me. Like I'm depressed. This is the worst thing that's happened to me. But then once I got out and started realizing the support system I had, that was incredible and what got me through it. And I've talked about the support system, the catalyst, recognizing when I was in that elevator with that guy and saw him just walk away. That was a cool thing for me. That was I call it my catalyst to propel me out of the depths and say, oh yeah, I'll be doing that in a year. And I've gotten some really cool opportunities to write letters for other amputees who are trying to fight to be back in pilot training, and they've said like, wow, we didn't know, because our plane has like a 60-pound rudder force that you need to overcome for emergencies and stuff. And to be able to show like a medical board that's not used to dealing with amputees, be like, this is what I do every day, so why can't? If I can land a 585,000-pound plane in 3,000 feet, then this person can go fly for you as well. And that's what I've been able to be a part of too, which is really cool. And just know that somebody always has to be the first. They're sitting there in this room, they're like, there's no other amputee pilots that have graduated pilot training. You're not worth the investment, we'll write you off. But you just have to tell them, I was so confident, I was like, I know I can do this, and you have to show them. And that's, somebody has to be the first. You always say that, somebody has to be the first to do it. And now there was another pilot that was fighting for to be a pilot. She just lost her leg above the knee in a boating accident. And it's just like, well, I've already done that. And there was a tower controller in the Air Force that lost his leg, and they were trying to say no. And it's like, if I can fly the plane, you can tell me how to fly the plane, like in the pattern stuff. So there's people like, I can do it, so can you. And this is a good quote. You can't let the fear of failure or fear of comparison or fear of judgment stop you from doing what is going to make you great, and you cannot succeed without this risk of failure. I was terrified the entire time, thinking that I'm not going to be able to fly anymore. They're going to say no. They said no the first time. What's different about the second time? And that's the thing. When you have those people who are like, this risk of failure is why we're doing it. Like, that's what makes it special, and that's what makes it important. If it was easy, everybody would do it, type of thing. So in conclusion, my dad told me a really story that left me kind of speechless when he told me. He said he had a friend that went to an air show in Houston, and there was all the big planes in the tarmac, and one of them was a C-5, and they went up to the guy, and they were telling him, hey, my friend son just got back he's a pilot in the Air Force, and he like lost his leg and got back, and he said, yeah. The pilot said, yeah, I know, I was on that board, and I was the colonel, one of those people, and we've never let anything like that. We would never let him back in the plane. But then he's told us his story, and they were so overprepared and so confident that we had to say yes, and we were so decided on like, this can't happen. And then I went in there and showed them our presentation and what we had, and just had the confidence, and they were like, wow, this guy has drive, and they said yes. But the fact that they said we never say yes to that type of stuff, and they do that all day long. They just crush dreams. But they make those hard decisions. But like for me, it was like they met me and they saw that I had the potential, and that was what I want to leave you guys with. Somebody has to be the first, and it's never too much when you're facing stuff, because you have the support system that you have here, and it's amazing. And that's, in conclusion, that's me as a cadet, sleeping. So yeah, thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
Your story of not just facing adversity, but how you conquered it, serves as an important model for cadets, whether it be passing that physics test next week, all the way to leading airmen and men and women in the field as future Air Force officers. At this time, the floor is open for questions, and as we near the end, I'll call out last question.
Sweet. Anything? Questions about Not just me, but being a pilot, being a cadet, anything like that. Yes, ma'am.
Which leg do you have on today?
So today I have the cosmetic, the Barbie leg on, because it fills the pants nicely and makes me look like, I have socks on and stuff, so that's what I have on now. It just varies what I feel like that morning. So. Yes, sir.
So I assume you were a pretty determined person to begin with. Do you feel like you're more determined now than you were before?
Yeah, and it's just I didn't ever think I'd be capable of that. And looking back, like when I have, when you like stub your toe or something, like that's the worst pain your body's feeling right then. I'm like, well, that's what I have the perspective of looking back on stuff and saying like, well, it's never gonna be that bad again. I know that, and so it's just putting the perspective like a bad day for me is no longer the level of, when I have a bad day at the office, I'm like, well, what you went through is never going to happen again, and that's behind you. So I kind of put perspective in stuff like that, and so that's kind of my determination to get through a seemingly hard day at the office or in life is definitely put in perspective now for me. Yes, Ms. Stock.
What was survival training like with the prosthetic leg?
So, when I go into training and stuff, my goal is to just like go as long as possible without anybody finding out I don't have a leg. And eventually, for athletic events and stuff, they eventually realize. But for that type of stuff, I just try to skirt through and be like, I just want to be normal and treat the same, obviously. And so I try to get through as long as possible without them knowing. So when they finally did find out, they were very like, why are you here? Like, how did we not know this? Why are you here? Because for those who don't know, every rated person or some medical people and stuff have to go through survival training in Washington in the mountains. And they just put you out in the woods for a while and they just leave you there. And so you just have to learn to be on your own stuff. And so for me, it was 20 degrees and it was just cold. It was a little bit more burdensome to be changing out my liners and stuff. And it was really cold. Got to keep it dry and stuff like that. But the medical people they sent out. I was already in the field. The medical people came out and they're like, "Do you need anything?" And I was like, "No, I'm good. I prepared for this." And they're like, "Oh," they're so perplexed that I was even there. So that was cool. And that's just I live all my trainings like that. There's still people at Hickam that don't know I don't have a leg, and that's kind of how I like to keep it. Is if you find out, that's fine. But I just want to be. I'm just there, like another guy. And Cami was my coach at the Warrior Games, and Nikki was the volleyball coach. So they're awesome. Yes, Peter. Anything else?
What's on the horizon for you? What do you want to do in terms of C-17s and being a young captain? Are you looking to go 20 and command?
So my thing now is I love flying, but the older you get, obviously, the less time you have to fly, and it's more desk-driven. So my thing now is I look into, this is my second flying assignment, and the third one's usually harder to get. So I'm kind of looking more towards, I really like the wounded warrior piece of, I've been lucky enough to be able to help out a couple people, and that's what I really like to focus on now. So I've been trying to, as much as I can, focus on stuff like that while still flying is really important to me. So I've been kind of looking into career opportunities in, at levels of the Air Force, the Wounded Warrior program, because it's a really cool thing that they have a huge, the numbers since I did the Warrior Games and what they're doing now is unbelievable. And they just found that they finally tapped into the network of all those people that they could help, and so I think that's really powerful to be able to just be a mentor and help out any way I can. When this girl Chrissy Wise lost her leg, she was a C-130 pilot. I got probably 20 text messages telling me did you hear about this? And they all just were trying to connect me to her to get, my doctor was the same doctor as her, and he called me and said, I want to talk to you about maybe coming to visit her. So that type of thing's really cool that all those people are interested in. We already know that people have gone through this, so let's skip all the rigmarole and get Ryan linked up with her and help her out. And the same thing people were doing with me. The pilot of Air Force 2 at one point was an amputee. There was a C-130 guard guy, and I got in touch with all those guys, and they helped me out. So I'm just trying to pay it forward now. Yes?
So actually, my question is similar to his. So will you compete in the Warrior Games, or do you want to coach, or both?
So that's the thing now. It's a pretty big time commitment. So I've done the Warrior Games twice now, and it was an amazing experience. And so I think I'm done with that piece of it. But they're starting to do these mentorship opportunities, and that's kind of what I'm interested in now. I would love to just be able to help out other guys, because there's always somebody going through unfortunately, a byproduct of this war is there's always going to be injuries like that. So being able to be a part of that mentorship piece is what I'm focused on more. It's hard to get time off for flying and stuff, and so I'd rather, that's more valuable to me, is to giving back, because the other part was really helpful for me to get back on my feet.
So it seems like the sports were critical.
They were. I did not think I'd be able to run, and when Cammie called me and said, yeah, let's do this, and it was like, no, it's a couple months away, I would never be able to do that. And just being pushed by, then my therapist realized, and she's like, no, we're going to get you. You got my leg, and I was so surprised how quickly everything just jumped off from there. Yeah.
Do you know anything about the other services as far as, or have they been, or are receptive?
Yeah, so that's
and stuff,
that's the thing. It's more difficult. Like it's kind of difficult because they all kind of have their own process and they don't really talk. So when I was like, you know, out of the blue amputee, because we just don't have that many. There's obviously more in the Marines and the Army, and their lifestyle is such that a lot of times they just don't want to go back. Like, they don't want to do that again. They've been through hell and back. So that piece is, I think it's more difficult sometimes for the Army and stuff. And for me, when my medical board was like, they were looking at only like, can you be a pilot? It wasn't like, there was a guy who lost his arm that his job was like out on the flight line getting like lines of stuff, and they wouldn't let him stay in. It's like, because he was going to be a mechanic, and they're like, well, you know, you want him to be able to still serve and let him do something else, but that's the system. It's kind of like focused on, can you be a pilot? And I was like, well, I still want to serve, but they were not focused on that. It was like, can you be a pilot? So it's more difficult. Other services might be different, but I know it's just difficult everywhere. But a lot of the opportunities for like recruitment and stuff, I've seen amputees and stuff do that, and that's pretty cool to be able to go out and share their stories too. Yeah.
When you went back into UPT, did you pick up right where you left off, or did you have to launch?
So I was about, the first 6 months is the T6 in academics, and then the last 6 months-ish is like the T1, like looks like a Learjet type plane. That, I was like 3 weeks into that, so I was only like 2 flights in, so I wasn't that far into that. So they just started me back at that plane. They just started me over like at the 3 weeks, which is fine. Like I just did the 6 months of that. So I was at a really convenient point if it had to happen. So it's kind of nice. They just put me right back there and right back in it, and I just showed up to class one day, and they were like, who are you? And I said, I'm here to be in T1s again, so it's kind of cool. So they're really supportive about that. Yeah?
So you said when you reached your medical review board, they kind of had their mind made up before you were in there, and luckily you proved to them that you could still stay in. Do you think that mentality's changed a little bit since yours, where they're giving people more of a chance, or are they really still kind of going into it with...
Yeah, so they look at it as an investment piece, like you said, and that's never going to change. Like, they look at, is this going to be a success? Like, is this, they're cutbacks is the bottom line. So this is a convenient place to do it. For me, they do look at everything. I mean, they look at all your stuff, and that's the thing is, if you're going to tell them, they already looked at all my documents and paperwork, so they kind of knew who I was, like, ish. But just, I think that piece of me showing up and having to, like, look somebody in the eye and say, you can't do this, or you can, that was really powerful. But I hope it has changed, because that's the thing. Now that they look at me and they see, now I can show them, okay, I've done this. For the next person, hopefully it's a lot easier, and hopefully it won't even have to go to, I heard one didn't even have to go to a medical board. Like they went to the preliminary, the paperwork one that you don't go visit. So that's cool. Like if we can just start stuff at that, I've heard that's getting better now, so that's cool. Yeah?
What's your call sign, sir?
We don't have call signs.
Okay.
They would probably be really interesting. No, we don't. In the season, that's more of a fighter thing, and we try to stay away from that type of stuff. So. I like that lifestyle a lot better. But I'm sure it'd be like peg leg or something ridiculous. They're usually not politically correct, as you guys know. Sweet. Anything else?